Subscribe to both of my YouTube channels, Sharon Winbush and Goddess Sharon. Sharon is spelled with 2 R's. Turn on notifications, like the video, and most importantly, share the video with everyone that you know and share it globally. Thank you.
Sharon Winbush said something that was crazy. She said, my wife, now how you gonna speak for my wife? My wife was left alone in the room with R. Kelly for 2 hours.
Keep my name out your fucking mouth!
My attorney wants to talk to you. What's your name? I'll give you another way.
JOYCELYN, how's the picture with your parents?
Look at the look.
Come on. Back up together. Right.
To the right.
Why does your daughter not want anything to do with her mother and father? Why did she ignore you when you came to court? She ignored you, her mother, her 2 sisters, and R. Kelly had been in jail, incarcerated, for over 6 months at that time. Because of COVID, he wasn't allowed visitors. And because Azriel was the first one on the visitor list, Joy didn't even get to see him. So surely after 6 months, his influence wore off. He got very little call time with her, and she rarely was able to see him, especially once COVID hit. He wasn't having visitors. When face to face with her mother and father, after not having seen them in years, after not being around R. Kelly for over 6 months, barely talking to him, barely having access to him because he was taken into custody July 11th, 2019. Azriel was the first one to go visit him for months. And when they visited, they could only go once every 2 weeks. So here she is around her family, and she clearly doesn't want shit to do with her mother and father or her sisters. That has nothing to do with being brainwashed. That's what she thinks of her family and how they have treated her and what they have done to get money.
My attorney wants to talk to you. What's your name? I'll give you another way.
Surviving Timothy Savage. Surviving Timothy Savage. Mute Tim Savage. What have you done to your own daughter that she doesn't want shit to do with you? She walks right by you like you're invisible. Did you sexually abuse her as a child, as a teen? Did you touch her inappropriately as a father? Did you beat her to the point where she's terrified of you and it was you she was trying to get out of the car from? Your daughter hadn't seen you in years, and yet her basic instinct is to stay the fuck away from you.
Sharon Winbush said something that was crazy. She said, my wife, now how you gonna speak for my wife? My wife was left alone in the room with R. Kelly for 2 hours.
Keep my name out your fucking mouth!
I I believe Joy doesn't speak to you because she knows the truth. She knows that you sent her and her 15-year-old sister to a concert with a plan. She knows that she got a phone number and you told her not to come home. You told KG they didn't have a key. You were out having drinks with your wife. You left your 18-year-old and your 15-year-old with a complete stranger. And she knew why. You sent her and your wife to California. Joy knew why. There's a picture of your two daughters and your wife when you claim they only saw him those 2 times. So there was a third time where both your daughters and your wife were around him. Joy knows the story behind that. Joy knows exactly what you were up to. She knows the truth, and that's why she does not fuck with you. You sent your 18-year-old and your 15-year-old to the Funk Fest with a complete stranger, a man, and then you told him, keep them. They don't have a key to the house, and you're out having drinks with your wife. Joy knows there was a plot. Out in California, however they got there, your wife and Joy were there. So where did this picture come from? There's another time that they were around R. Kelly that you haven't talked about. Talk about this picture. We know about the Funk Fest with just Joy and the 15-year-old. We know about California with just Joy and her mother. Where did this picture occur? Where was this taken? Because this is another time that both your daughters and your wife were around R. Kelly. That's 3 times the females in your family were sent to be around R. Kelly and you were not present. You said you've never met the man. Why would you send all of the females? Do you really think your wife would tell you the truth about what happened in Robert's dressing room for 3 hours? She was back there by herself. She's not going to tell you the truth. So you know for a fact KG was not responsible for your daughter meeting Robert because he didn't introduce your daughter to Robert at the Funk Fest. KG had nothing to do with them coming out to California. Yet you keep bringing his name up and calling it predatory behavior when he never introduced your daughter to Robert Kelly. You guys pursued Robert Kelly. He took both your daughters to the Funk Fest and never introduced them to Robert Kelly. You, your wife, and your daughter got the phone number and began calling Robert. That could not have been Cheryl Mack's number because Robert doesn't allow anyone to answer his phone. So if your daughter had R. Kelly's phone number, there had to be sufficient communication that he then gave Cheryl Mack's phone number because you said your wife called his number and spoke to Cheryl Mack. Nobody answers Robert's phone but Robert. So your lies are tripping you up all over the place. KG didn't set your daughter up with R. Kelly. You sent both of your daughters to entice, entrap, extort. That was the game plan, in my opinion. She knows the minute she came home, you videotaped her as her mother asked her invasive sexual questions. You didn't put your arms around her and welcome her home and have a home-cooked meal and show her love and compassion. You immediately started grilling her with a camera rolling, your cell phone recording her, so that you had footage. She knew that you were trying to become famous off of this story. She knew that you were trying to get rich off of this story. There's so many recordings of you saying it. She knows the truth. She knows that you destroyed Robert Kelly's life so you could come up out of the ghetto-ass background that you came from. And she doesn't want shit to do with you or her mother because she knows what you guys plotted. And the FBI will have all communications between all of you during this time period. Your daughter was grown. She made choices for herself. She chose to be with a rich, famous man over living at home with her parents. That was her choice. At any point she could have left, and she didn't, because where she was better than what she had to go back to. You can't accept the fact that your now 26-year-old grown-ass daughter, who hasn't been around R. Kelly in almost 3 years, barely gets to see him, barely gets to talk to him on the phone because of COVID and because of all the restrictions. She never had Stockholm Syndrome. She was never brainwashed. She was an adult female who made a decision about her life that you didn't agree with. And you didn't agree with it simply because you could not capitalize on it financially. She knows the truth of who you are. And she doesn't want shit to do with Timothy Savage or JOYCELYN Savage because you have destroyed her happiness. Surviving Timothy Savage. Surviving Timothy Savage. Mute Tim Savage.
How's the picture with your parents?
JOYCELYN, look at the look.
Come on. Back up and down as well.
Right.
To the wife.
Sharon Wimbush said something that was crazy. She said, my wife, now how you gonna speak for my wife? My wife was left alone in the room with R. Kelly for 2 hours.
R. Kelly had his money seized by the government to pay back taxes, and he has liens against all of his income. To help him fight for his freedom, you can donate money directly to him at the MDC on his commissary books. This is the information. Go to bop.gov to get more information on the method that works for you. You can call the MDC directly yourself to get step-by-step instructions. They can walk you through it, and then you can decide which method works for you. The phone number to the MDC is 718-840-4200. It's Robert Kelly, 09627-035. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, P.O. Box 329002, Brooklyn, New York, 11232. You can go to the website bop.gov and make sure that you can see which method, whether it's credit card or mailing a money order or sending money through MoneyGram, which method works best for you. Remember and keep in mind he's going to be transferred probably in a couple of months once his sentencing happens. So any monies that you can send Send them now, because you know once he's transferred, there's that delay in getting money. So please try to send as much as you can, certainly before his sentencing.